You are listening to Fantha Tracks.
Because of the following special program, Wonder Woman and the Incredible Hulk will not be presented this evening.
It's time to get all your Star Wars news in a single file. This is Making Tracks. Here are your hosts, Mark Newbold and Mark Mulcaster.
It's not true. That's impossible.
You're listening to Making Tracks and a very special episode as we return to the halls of Olympia in London for London Film and Comic Con, where myself and Paul Naylor sat down with the man behind Bib Fortuna in Return of the Jedi, Michael Carter, to discuss episode 6 and much, much more. So this is myself and Paul Naylor talking to Michael Carter at London Film and Comic Con 2023. Right, welcome back to the second stage at London Film and Comic Con. I'm Mark Newbold from Fantha Tracks and Star Wars Insider, and joining me is Paul Naylor from Start Your Engines podcast. Hello, Paul.
Hello, Mark.
Perfect.
Good to be here again.
We're here with Michael Carter. We're going to talk about life, the universe, and everything. So, before we kick off into any deep dive stuff, are you enjoying the show so far?
I'm very, very, very busy. So I'm just kind of fighting age, decline, and a lack of energy. But apart from that, I'm enjoying it, yeah. It's great.
We'll try and make this as relaxing as we possibly can.
That was a very honest answer.
I'll let you kick off, Paul.
Okay, so, well, for many of the people that are here today, obviously they will know you best as Bib Fortuna from Return of the Jedi. We have met a while back, and I asked you a question regarding the contact lenses. And just let people know, because back in those days, they weren't like your daily disposable lenses like you get now, which are really soft on the eye. They were pretty mean things, weren't they?
Yeah, they were solid. They were called haptics, and they were I don't know whether they were made of glass, I presume. One of the problems was that they were made in a hurry by an optician who clearly had better paid work to do somewhere else, and made a bit of a hash of them, so that when they came to be fitted, the optician who was on call as my optician during the filming, who went by the unlikely but true name of Richard Glass, great name. I said to him one day, I said, why did you become an optician, Richard? And he said, well, with a name like Glass, what else could I be? You know. But he realised that they were they didn't fit. But it was far too late to make new ones. In those days, it took a long time to make anything, and so I just had to put up with them. I ended up with abrasions of the cornea. God knows what. I couldn't see properly for about a week after I finished filming. But Richard really looked after me and made sure my eyes were as healthy as they probably could be, and bathed them in various things, you know.
So the actual process of putting on the prosthetic makeup, the tentacles, if you like, and the actual headdress and everything else, how long did that process take?
It took 8.5 hours the first time we tried it.
Ouch.
I kind of look at modern actors, and I know that they wear something that they push on and they pull off, or they've kind of got little electronic dots all over the ski mask, and it's all going to be added by CGI later. And there's a great advantage to that, obviously, in the sense that it's not physically taxing. I sat and had 13 pieces of blown rubber glued on my face every day for 5 weeks, and then ripped off at night. The disadvantage is that once it was all on, I could look at myself in the mirror and I could see Bib Fortuna. It wasn't me I was looking at, it was somebody called Bib Fortuna, and it was like a mask exercise. I was able to visualize how he would move and what he might sound like and all that sort of stuff. So I had advantages and disadvantages, you know. But I certainly wouldn't do it again at my age.
I say, when you're an actor, you've done all sorts of roles, different roles across your career, and then you land on a role like that, which is obviously an important role within the context of the film. But you yourself, as you say, you look in the mirror and you're gone and this guy replaces it. As an actor, is that easier? because you've kind of lost yourself to become somebody else?
Definitely. I mean, if there's any way you can lose yourself, it's much, much easier. I mean, I did a thing recently in France, and for some reason they asked us all to speak with very mild French accents, which I thought was a bit crazy. I was playing a Frenchman as a Brit. I'm playing a Frenchman who's speaking English with a mild French accent. So the question you say to yourself is, why do you just get a Frenchman to play this role? You won't have to put on a funny accent. But the odd thing was, because I had to put on this French accent, it provided me with a character. It's very strange. It's just a little thing like that hooks you into somebody. And I was able to kind of forget who I was and lose myself and just go into the character. So any kind of prop at all will do. Anything at all that helps.
So you're looking for a hook, a visual hook, an audio hook, something to...
What is it? Sometimes it's visual, sometimes it's something else. You know?
Hi, this is Gareth Edwards, director of the best standalone Star Wars film since Caravan of Courage, called Rogue One. You're listening to Panther Tracks. Enjoy.
I mean, you've worked in a number of different genres. You were in American Werewolf in London many years ago. Tell us a bit about that. Tell us a little bit about that, about the American Werewolf in London.
What was
what was the role like? How did you enjoy it?
It was great. I mean, I think it was the first film role I did, and I went up for the part of the kind of comic detective, but John Landis changed his mind at the last minute and asked me to play Gerald Bringsley. And this was 1981, and there was a flu going around, which I think was called the Red Flu or something like that, one of those flus, which, I mean, pre-COVID doesn't seem very serious, but it was actually killing people. And I got it, and I remember going to my doctor and saying, I feel ill. They said, yeah, you've got this red flu, bed for 2 weeks. I said, no, I'm working on Friday. He said, no, you're not. I said, I'm working on Friday. I'll be able to work when I... He said, well, this flu's done away with 2 of my patients already, so it's on your own head. If you were going to work and you end up in the hospital, you end up dead, it's not my fault. So I turned up and we shot in a tube station beneath Tottenham Court Road tube station. 1 o'clock in the morning, there was no oxygen, and I'd lost 1.5 stone in 10 days, and I thought I was going to die. No acting required.
And what was John Landis like to work with? I mean, he was on a bit of a hot streak of films then.
John Landis?
Yeah.
Oh, God, he was great. He was like a walking encyclopedia. You could ask him any question about film and he knew the answer. We had a kind of competition sometimes between setups. We'd try and catch him out with a film. Who won the Oscar for Best Costume Design 1932? And he'd know the answer. And he was very funny as well. He was just great fun to work with. Very amusing, very professional, very good director. He could just give you one sentence and you got what he wanted, you know. So he's very, very good, but he was also just great fun, just a great fun guy.
Yeah, I say people forget what a big film that was. That was a big deal in 81. So did that have any part in your, I guess, profile to be picked up for doing stuff in Jedi? Do you think that had a knock-on effect?
No, I didn't. I mean, the only thing it did do, I had to have the character with his throat torn out and half his face ripped away, and so they produced a couple of prosthetics. And when I went up for Bib, one of the reasons I went up for it was because they knew that I could handle prosthetics. I mean, they weren't much. It was only a bit in the face and a bit on here, but some actors can't. They just can't stand the idea of having the face covered with rubber. So only in that sense, it didn't influence anything else. I mean, I was doing quite a lot of television and theatre at the same time, and the worlds in those days weren't probably as integrated as they are now. Yeah. It was a different world, a completely different world, if you're a professional actor in those days.
Yeah. And you were able to cope with the rigours of having the makeup on, and some people couldn't. Maybe I'm asking a weird question. Why do you think you could handle it? Were you able to disassociate yourself a little bit?
I don't know. Maybe some people felt claustrophobic. I don't know. I felt okay. I mean, I didn't feel okay. It was very uncomfortable to wear. It was not pleasant but it didn't bother me. It just didn't bother me. I don't know. You know, why are some people afraid of heights and others aren't? I was fine.
Yeah. When you went into the role, did you know that Bib was going to be such? Because he is quite an important. He's the sort of the conduit between Jabba and everybody else. So did you know he was such a key character in that scenario when you went into Jedi?
I didn't know anything about it at all. I really didn't. I don't think any of us did, and I think that was deliberate. We just kind of turned up and there and did what we were told. We were given the script, obviously. We learned the lines and spoke the lines, but we didn't know much about what was going on. We were only given a section of the script too.
Yeah.
So you didn't know what the rest of the film was going to be like. I didn't know the whole story until I saw the film. So in that sense, it was quite secretive. They were quite paranoid about publicity, the wrong kind of publicity. In fact, the day I did the first makeup, they put the whole lot on me for the first time. I was supposed to do a lighting test that afternoon. On a Friday afternoon before we started filming on the Monday, and I was in a dressing room down the front of the studio, and the Star Wars set where the rig was set up was way up the other end, and they had a great problem getting me from the front to the studio because I couldn't get in the taxi because the head was too big. So they didn't know what to do. They had a real problem. I said, "What's the problem? What's the problem? I can walk up." They said, no, you can't do that. No. I said, yeah, I can just walk up. I couldn't see out of the red eyes. I said, so take somebody's hand and I can walk up. They can leave me. I said, no, you can't, because there might be a journalist on the high street with a 600mm lens who just catches a glimpse of you as you walk between two buildings. I said, you're joking. He said, no, it's for real. So after a great deal of discussion, they solved the problem. What they did was they came out to me. George Lucas came out. He said, Mike, just to get you up, would you mind if we put a dustbin bag over your head? And I said, no, that's all right. So they put a dustbin bag over my head, led me up to the studio. I did the lighting test. I was okay. They put it back over my head and led me back again.
I hope they put a few holes in that. Hope you could breathe.
Just a load of rubbish.
So the character of Bib Fortuna, we've later found out, did survive the events of Return of the Jedi. Were you in any way sad that you didn't get to reprise the role?
Well, I mean, in some ways, yes, but in other ways, no. I mean, I did that role when I was young, and it was physically taxing. And I don't think I could have gone through the same stuff again as an older man. If it was a case of just, CGIing it on my boat race, I might have thought about it. That'd be quite nice. But the idea of sitting in a chair and having all that stuff glued in your face, nowadays I suppose they would just make a mask and you put it on and you take it off again.
Plus the character had put a bit of weight on and you're still nice and slim, sir, aren't you?
This is true. This is true, yeah.
For everything in one location, daily news, reviews, interviews, podcasts, video and social media feeds, bookmark FanthaTracks.com for Star Wars news 24/7, 365.
One of the byproducts, one of the side elements of being in Star Wars is all the merchandise. So back in '83 and things start coming out, what sort of things caught your eye? When you start, it's out in the world, there's toys coming out, there's stationery, there's all sorts of stuff.
No, we didn't. I don't think we knew. I mean, everybody spoke about the fact that George had done this really good deal with Hasbro. I think it was the original one.
Yeah.
They'd been really smart. And merchandising was just becoming part of the whole industry then. There wasn't a lot of it around. It was all very naive and innocent. And I remember when all the little figures came out, I bought them for my kids and for my son, really. Although he wasn't that interested, to be absolutely honest, but he had everything, he had the attack and whatnot. He wasn't really that interested. And then I remember it was Jeffrey Bullock, who played Boba Fett. I met him one day and he said he'd just been to a convention in Florida. I said, what was that? He said, well, people get me to sign photographs of my character and pay me for it. I said, wow. And he said, I was met on the tarmac at Florida Airport by people dressed up as Boba Fett. I said, get out of here. He said, no. He said, you should do this. I said, yeah. And occasionally he'd ring me up and he said, do you want to come and do one? I said, no. And then inevitably I hit a period as an actor when I was out of work for a long time and I was broke. And I said, okay, I'll do one. And I went to Detroit. I didn't see anything of Detroit. I saw a lot of snow and the inside of a place like this and the inside of a hotel, and that was it. That was it started. But in those days, it was only Star Wars. Then Star Trek crept in. Now it's everything and everybody. I mean, I've signed more stuff for House of the Dragon this morning than Star Wars.
Yeah. So with House of the Dragon, which is obviously at last we get to see your face. You know, what was that like? The experience of working on that?
Well, that was originally that role was offered to David Warner, whom I knew. He was a lovely, lovely man, a bit older than I am, and I think was truly a truly great actor. When he was young, he was the greatest Hamlet of his day. He was a great stage actor. He went to America, and it kind of didn't work out quite as well from probably as it should have done. But that was offered to David, and then David was ill. I mean, I knew he was ill. I mean, seriously ill. He died eventually of cancer, and so he couldn't do it. He made a decision, but he said it's the best offer I've ever had. He said there are no lines to learn. It's great. You sit down throughout the whole thing. It's one day, and you get to be king. It's great. And I said, oh, that's great. And I didn't know then, 2 weeks later, my agent rang me and said, there's a part, King Jairus, it's only one day. The drawback is there's no lines. And I said, was this offered to David Warner? He said, yes, it was. I said, oh, yeah. Okay, I'll do it. So I did it as a little bit of an homage to David. And I spent more time going up to the studio there to get dressed and made up than I did filming. The filming was great. It was easy. It was huge. It was studio the size of this. But it was easy. It was great fun.
And whenever you're in a show like House of the Dragon, for example, and you're part of it, especially a debut episode like that, is there a little bit of part of you that kind of keeps on track with what's going on, or because you're an actor, you're moving on to other things? Do you ever follow what goes on?
Well, no, because you're an actor, you tend to just treat it as a job, You treat it as a job. I mean, we watched the first episode, and I just look at the special effects and think, wow, they've come on a long way. I mean, they really have. I mean, the effects are incredible.
Oh, yeah.
Really are.
Yeah.
You think, on Jedi, everything was built, physically built. You want to blow up a bridge in the River Kwai, they built a bridge.
Yeah.
Sent a train across it and blew it up. The whole thing. Now it'll all be done by CGI. It'll be done by geeks with computers. Brilliant.
You're talking to two geeks with computers.
Yeah,
I've got a computer somewhere. Yeah.
You inherited the earth.
Because you've had a long run in acting and film and such, and something like American Werewolf or Jedi and right through to Game of Thrones, you've seen that progression of technology as well. As an actor, you work in concert with it. You're not, directly involved in that side of it, but you're working with it. How interesting is that to see the development? Because you've got a long view of it now. You've watched it grow.
Well, I mean, it is interesting. You've got to actually kind of adapt yourself. You've got to develop a new technique that goes along with it in a way. So you are working, hand in hand in film and television with technicians to a degree. But, I mean, you learn when you're working in film, it is a technical medium anyway, even from the start, even long before this stuff started. You've got to learn to hit your mark. You've got to learn to, you'll set up a shot and the cameraman will say, that's great, Mike, can you just cheat 5 millimeters to the left? So you do that. That's it. Can you hold that? Can you find that? Yeah. So you're thinking differently. You've got to think of, when I say this line, my face has got to come into this position precisely, otherwise the shot isn't going to be in focus. So you're already kind of absorbing the technical aspects of it. It's not all about an inspired performance. You've got to make sure you're in focus, you're in the right place in the composition. You can't just wander all over the place. So there's a bit your mind is very much operating technically.
Yeah.
And the other bit is theoretically supposed to be operating creatively. I quite like all that. I like the technical aspect of it all.
Yeah. I mean, back in the day, film was film, television was television. They were separate mediums. Now it feels like the line is very much blurred.
Difference.
Yeah.
I mean, a few people on Martin Scorsese will maintain, of course, there's a difference. But as far as the global population is concerned, no. As far as actors are concerned, no. I mean, there's still old-fashioned TV stuff. You can do, a cop series that's shot in Nottinghamshire. But, there's no distinction really now. Which is extraordinary, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of all the roles you've played, from day one as an actor walking onto stage or set for the first time to the latest thing you've done, apart from Bib, obviously, it's a different thing because it's part of Star Wars, it's a different sort of memory. What character has been the one that you've gravitated to the most of all the ones you've played? And you can go as way out as you want.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I've always liked doing comedy. So any comedy character I like, But, I was thinking about Bib the other. My wife said to me a while ago, she said, you really ought to be grateful to Bib Fortuna, that character. I can't remember what it was. We went on holiday, and I paid for it, something like that. I paid for it, money I'd made out of, conventions. And she said, look, Bib Fortuna paid for this. You've got to be grateful to him. And it made me start thinking, I thought, yeah, you're right. I love old Bib. He's done a lot for me. He's done a hell of a lot for me over the years. I didn't think he would. That last night when I ripped the makeup off for the last time, I thought, thank God for that. I'm out of here. But over the years, Bib keeps coming back. And he's been very, very good to me, Bib. And I suppose in a sense that's the one I'll be remembered for. The other stuff, I've been in the National Theatre, I've worked on Broadway with Dustin Hoffman. It's all been great stuff, but it's all been so different.
Yeah.
And they've all been great experiences in their different ways. And there have been some miserable experiences too. Of course, that's inevitable.
Hi there, this is Mike Quinn. I played Nine Numb in Return of the Jedi and the new trilogy, and you're listening to Panther Tracks.
Doing the research, you co-wrote a film that starred Anthony Hopkins, am I right?
That was years ago. That was, I co-wrote a film. It got, it's the usual writer's story. You write something and it then gets taken out of your hands, it gets rewritten. And very often when it gets rewritten, it gets improved. A little tweak here and there, Well, this was a major rewrite. It really was a mess. And in fact, the director got fired in the end. And Tony Hopkins had liked the original script, but when he turned up in Veracruz to film the film, he was handed a new script, and he really got very angry indeed. And it was a bit of a disaster in the end. I've got a credit, but it's something I don't even think about now.
Yeah.
It's a shame because the original script was rather good, and I'm not just saying because I co-wrote it. Was based on a script written by another fellow who was a good writer, and Tony really liked it, and there was a couple of fairly high-profile actors actually asked to be in it, which was quite complimentary, and then the director rehashed it. The director couldn't write, he rehashed it and had it polished by somebody else, and there was just a kind of riot when they turned up for filming, and the film itself died a death. It was really it was a disaster.
And when you go in as an actor to any project, do you know when you're finding a diamond and when you're polishing a turd? Do you kind of know what you're getting?
You really don't. You think you do, but you don't. Sometimes you think this is a great script and you do it and it's kind of okay. There are some scripts which just come across and some that don't. Yeah. It's the same on stage. You read scripts on stage. You think, oh, God, this is terrible. Bingo. Yeah. Hit. It just some writers have got the knack of knowing how to get an idea across without it necessarily looking good on the page. Because it's not about the page. It's about what's up there on the screen or what's up there on the stage. It's a real gift. I don't know what it is. I'm sure the writers who've got that gift don't even understand it themselves. Yeah. They're just grateful to have it.
And finally, what's on your plate currently? Apart from this wonderful interview, what's next for you?
No, nothing much, very much. I'm semi-retired. A friend of mine, Dudley Sutton, who was... do you remember that... what was that antique show that was on television for years? The drama. Ian McShane.
Oh, Lovejoy.
Lovejoy. He played Tinker in Lovejoy. When he got into his 80s, he worked less. Dudley had always worked. He'd done over 60 films, God knows what. And it got him down. Suddenly he said, "People, I'm out of work for a long period. I'm quite low." And I said, "Well, it happens to all the older actors, He said, "I know. It's just so depressing." He said, "But I made a decision. I decided to describe myself as retired actor, but still open for offers." And that cheered him up enormously. And as soon as he did that, he started getting a few offers. Yeah. So I'm retired, but still open to offers.
Well, we can't top that. Thank you so much for your time. Big round of applause for Michael.
Thanks very much indeed. Thanks for that.
That was brilliant. Brilliant. Enjoyed that.
If you want to be part of the action, visit fanthatracks.com or be sure to comment, like and share on our social media feeds at Fanthatracks. Send in your listeners' questions by emailing radio@fanthatracks.com. Subscribe, leave a review, preferably a 5-star one, on Amazon Music, Audible, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or your podcatcher or smart speaker of choice. And as always, thanks to James Semple for composing the Fanthatracks intro, Adam O'Brien for our Making Tracks opening music, and Mark Daniel and Vanessa Marshall for our voiceovers. Tune in to Good Morning Tatooine. It's live Sunday evenings, 9 o'clock UK, 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific, on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. And check out our Fanthatracks Radio Friday night rotation every Friday at 7 o'clock UK time for new episodes of The Phantom from Down Under, Planet Leia, Desert Planet Discs, Start Your Engines, Collecting Tracks, Cannon Fodder, and special episodes of Making Tracks, and every Tuesday at 7 o'clock UK time for your weekly episode of Making Tracks. And remember, Fanthatracks.com, our social media feeds, Fanthatracks TV and Fanthatracks Radio are absolutely free. So no Patreon, Buy Me a Coffee, Kickstarter or Indiegogo required to stay updated on all the latest Star Wars news.
Until we catch up with you again, may the Force be with you.
Coming up next on Fanthatracks Radio, it's another episode of Making Tracks.